mind if I stand up? I just put out my neck, so that angle kind of doesn't work. That's what we've done. And the results are clinically very good. So if you think about it, when we took Hinchinbrook, it was called a financial and clinical basket case. And if you look at that value equation I talked about, quality over price, I don't believe you can ever fix the two at the same time. And those who say that I'm going to tackle it at the same time, fix the quality and fix the price, they're kidding themselves, because what they do, they freeze one and fix the other one, always. And usually what happens is that you salami a slice and get rid of it all, or cut it all. So what we've done is said, let the hospital continue. It was supposed to lose £10 million a year or £1 million a month. And we said, let it just continue losing money and focus on the quality. And in the first 6 months, I think the staff have done an amazing job. This was a hospital that was right at the bottom of the pile in the SHA on every performance indicative. In the last 3 months, it's ranked the top hospital, full general hospital with A&E in all of East of England and Midlands, out of 46 hospitals in the country. Number 3 in the whole region if you include specialist hospitals who don't have A&E. I mean, that was for a clinical basket case that people wanted to close down. CQC just did a report on it for its very first time in its history, and among a very small number of hospitals in Britain that got green on every quality indicator. Not a single area of concern. It's the top performer on A&E and has been now for 5 months in a row in its region. So clinically, it's doing okay. It's not doing fantastically well, but it's doing okay. I should do a lot better. And now we have to deal with it financially. And, you know, I do a lot of sports when I can. But I'm never good enough to run a marathon. But I do know from friends of mine who run a marathon, only a fool will celebrate after running 5-6 miles. And we haven't done this more than 5-6 months now, or 7 months, so we'll see how it goes. But, you know, I hope it works, because what is at stake in Hinchinbrook is not Hinchinbrook. It's not even private sector. What is at stake in Hinchinbrook is the future of District General Hospital in UK on one hand, and whether you can have partnerships or people who work in a hospital, run a hospital as opposed to Whitehall on the other hand. That's what's at stake. There is a huge chorus going on in Britain now that says shut down District General Hospitals, they're too small, give their money and their revenue to the big teaching hospitals, they run it for you. And we've made that mistake once in the 60s or early 70s with our branch railroads, where the rest of Europe kept it. We got rid of it because it was too small, and we thought we consolidate all the passengers into towns and cities, and you saw the disaster that created, while the rest of Europe have much better solution. And actually, for those of you, and most of you who understand economics better than I do, it goes against the face of everything the economics teaches us. That actually it should be the district general hospitals that should do much better than the big teaching hospitals. Because if they can do 80% of what big teaching hospitals do next to people's home, economically, guess which one is in trouble if you didn't have a market that was manipulated. Just look at the success of Walmart in America versus the retailers who were based in the big cities.
Ali, can I ask a question about the speed and scale of the NHS at the moment in terms of engaging with private providers? We've had a lot of rhetoric around it for a number of years, a couple of false starts with the NHS Concordat, you could argue. Do you think we're finally getting to a point where we're going to see speed and scale of private providers?
No, I don't. I actually think that, and I say that to our politicians on both or all sides of the debate, I think we're blessed with politicians that to a large degree often are just populist. And sometimes you just think that what we're arguing about, what we're discussing in here, is just motherhood and apple pie. And we don't talk that way. I mean, privately, on all sides of the house, by the way, people tell you that, oh, I can understand, I see the logic, but you must understand, British people won't understand that. Well, nonsense. Give British people credit for understanding this. I mean, I don't think, well, we ran a poll the other day. I chaired CBI's healthcare panel, and we ran a poll in CBI, and it was fascinating to me that, do you know what was the percentage of the British people who say, Ipsos Mori ran the poll for us, who said that they would never want to see a hospital in the hands of the private sector? 7%. What was the percentage of people who said that actually it should always be run by the private sector? 22%. I mean, that doesn't, by the way, surprise you. There are more Daily Mail readers in Britain than there are Morning Star readers, right? So, and everybody else, the vast majority of people were in between. And what were they concerned about, quite rightly? They were concerned about two things. One was that does profit should not take over from quality, so we shouldn't create a Ryanair model of healthcare, which I completely agree with. And secondly, was that accountability should stay with the public because the public pays for it. And that I completely agree with too. But in the absence of having that, what we're going to end up is with the kind of private sector that will only take the non-risk things, with contracts that will only get bigger and riskier and more difficult to do, and then with the race to the bottom that eventually will only attract the kind of nightmare we have in our looking after elderly situation that we have in our care homes sometimes, right? So I think unless we, if you were in Germany, you wouldn't even ask me this question, right? More hospitals are delivered by the private sector than they are by the public sector. And after the private sector is the voluntary sector. And the Germans are significantly happier with their healthcare than we are. So it's a uniquely British debate. And you know why it's a uniquely British debate? Because the other thing that is uniquely British is the fact that a single square mile in the Whitehall and a single square mile in the city, 2 square miles in this country, control 93% of all our assets, productive assets in Britain. How mad is that? The people who do the work in this country control so little. And that is fundamentally wrong. If you compare that with Germany again, 40% of the economy is in the hands of small businesses, family businesses, what they call Mittelstand, right? And then compare what the social effect of that is. The poorest part of Germany is 2 times poorer than the richest part of Germany. That ratio in France is 4 times. In America is 5 times. In China is 8 times. In Britain is a shameful 10 times. When I go on a holiday, because I used to be an investment banker and managed to have a little bit of saving, I go to this resort. I go to these resorts. I go to this resort, and everybody who's in my resort or in my hotel from Germany is from all over Germany and does all sorts of works. From France, the same. From America, the same. From South Africa, the same. From Britain, they're all from London, and they're all from the financial sector. It's fascinating what we've created here.
Yeah. Further questions? Yep.
Andy Kaplan from Health Policy Insight. Ali, lovely, lively talk, as ever. 2 questions, if I may. Firstly, how does Circle Hospitals innovate in the way you work with pharma companies and medtech companies to deliver your services? The second, looking at an environment where NHS spending is likely to be flat for possibly 10 years, and so there is going to be downward pressure on the national tariff. You're a very smart guy. You understand economics. Why do you want to be a provider in this market?
Thank you so much for both compliments. I appreciate it. I don't know whether I deserve it, but I appreciate it. The first question is, the answer to it is badly. And so when we created, for instance, Circle Bath, we went in there and we said, you know, I want to build a hospital like every other hospital. But I could persuade Norman Foster, who's never built a hospital before, to come and build Circle Bath for us. And we could, and as a result, we won the award for best building in UK, the very first building we ever built, best public space globally. But that's because Lord Foster and his team took on the challenge with us of doing something fundamentally different. And his brief was, if somebody walks into a hospital, I don't want him to know it's a hospital. I was so delighted that the other day we had a delegation of 50 people from China coming to Reading, to our hospital in Reading, another hospital. And they were sitting there, and when we arrived, they all got up, put their jackets on, and said, let's go to the hospital. And we said, this is the hospital. But when we try to have the same conversations with the pharma community, and particularly medical devices community, we couldn't engage them. And the reason we couldn't engage them, quite rightly, is that we're a blip on the revenue. It really doesn't matter what we sell or do in the biggest scheme of things. And those of you who are in the sales team, I assume that you get paid based on how well you sell. And whether you sell something to us doesn't really matter. I mean, we are even today, 5 years ago, we are a zero revenue company with 15 staff. Even today, we are a 200 million pound company with 3,000 staff. We are negligible in the grand size of things. So we didn't manage to come in. But I actually think that they missed the trick, because Lord Foster now all over the world is building hospitals on the back of what he's done there, and good luck to him. And I think that what people find in people like us is a zeal for innovation, of doing things differently. And those of you who have products that are not just even more expensive than the other product, or wants to just do things even more cumbersomely than the other guy, those companies who actually believe there is time for reinventing the way we deliver healthcare, in us you will find a really good partner, because we share the same zeal. Your second question, why am I in healthcare? The truth and honest answer of that is out of stupidity. I wasn't intelligent enough when I got into this industry to see all the barriers in the industry. So my problem then became the same as a friend of mine who was describing to me her problem the other day, which was she just got pregnant. And now she's got to deliver the baby. And it's the same happened to me. I just got pregnant with this industry, and now I have to deliver the baby. But if I could sit back all over again and think about this all over again, would I still get into healthcare? I think I would, although I would think very carefully about it, knowing what I know. But would I be doing hospitals? I'm not sure I would. So I wouldn't go into the business of mainframes, trying to get mainframes more productive and cheaper. I would get into the business of doing PCs. And I think I can see all over the world fantastic examples of people doing amazing pieces of work that, that completely redefine what the future of healthcare should be. And I don't think the future of healthcare will have much to do with hospitals. I think it'll have, don't think much, it will have much to do with GPs and their places. I think we will very soon, and some parts of the world already do almost all our consultations on a video phone. We will have all our testings done massively by that same device that is in our hand, and we will be able to be diagnosed and prescribed in a fundamentally different way. And interestingly, if you're a very poor person in Mexico, that is available to you today. In the same way that the Toyota was available to a poor person in Japan and eventually conquered the world.
Okay, thank you. That was great fun. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
We're a language company. We provide both the private sector and the public sector. And what we find in the private sector is we get recommended, we get them to talk about that way. In the public sector, we lose tenders, but it doesn't matter because gradually the users who got the tenders, who now use the tenders, start drifting back to us saying, sorry, that's not what we contact you. What that means to me is that the NHS is asking the wrong questions. How do you think the NHS can be readdressed to ask the right questions to actually get the right service when we go to tender?
I think you're absolutely right. I'm actually, after this, talking to the same thing to one of our ministers exactly on this subject, because I think they got it completely wrong. And this government came with the promise of fixing it, and they're not fixing it. I mean, look, we in Nottingham run, I don't want to blow its horn, but we run a service that people from all over Europe come and visit. You know, it's now Europe's largest day surgical center. We do things in a day than others spend 2 to 3 days staying in a hospital in. And we don't get everything right. For sure, we get stuff wrong. But in some areas, that facility has become so popular now that with the consent of the PCT, we are breaching the 18 weeks time because patients just are pouring in it and we just can't serve them. And yet, they've just put a tender for the renewal of the program on this, and they've taken a £50 million contract and tendered into almost £15 million. I mean, and then they're saying good luck with the rest. And then they're saying as long as everybody passes the quality threshold. By the way, do we have press here?
Do we have press here?
Please don't quote me on this, otherwise I'll be disqualified
No, I don't
from
think
the
we do.
tender. I'll be disqualified from the tender. But then they're saying as long as you pass the average quality thing, you will be only judged on price. It's absurd, completely, utterly absurd. It doesn't really matter for us because we use Nottingham to win Hinchinbrook. And if we lose Nottingham, we'll be extremely sad because we're a partnership of people. But you know, we lost Bradford, which was another ICC, much smaller, to a private equity-owned firm, which within 3 months managed to turn it into a loss maker and lose 70% of the staff and go from 5 days of surgery to 1 day of surgery. 2.5 years later, they're still losing money on that. And in Burton, we used to run a day surgical center on 20 million pounds of revenue, small. We made 5 million pounds of profit. We gave the trust, the Burton Foundation Trust, 3 million of that, and we kept 2. And when it came for renewal, they didn't even put it for tender. They said, oh, thank you very much, we do it all, and we do take the whole 5 million. 6 months later, the trust gone bust. Right, the chairman was fired, the chief executive is now put next to him somebody who's is one of the foundation trusts with major issues in sometimes it's just soul destroying. And I'm not sure Britain is going to learn. I was talking to one of my investors the other day. He's one of the largest investors in Britain. And he was telling me an interesting assessment. He was saying that actually when he risk profiles countries, he thinks we're better off serving customers in Africa than we would be in Britain. He thinks Britain is a riskier place to deliver healthcare from an investment point of view than Africa. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Question in the middle. We need a mic. You're very softly spoken.
Gemma, do you want to ask your question, and what I'll do is I'll repeat it.
So we have a few things in common. I live in Cambridge, so I have 3 children, so now I know which any department to drive them to at the end of the working day. But I'm very interested to understand, because the Peterborough and Cambridgeshire PCTs have a legacy of having difficulties in working with the industry, and whether or not, as a provider, you're finding that the new CCG is working more innovatively with providers in the area. And in that experience, how best the industry can help to work with the new CCG to help them to resolve the issues that they now have.
I think we had a challenging PCT in Cambridgeshire. I mean, I try to be straight, and I think my very first meeting with the PCT was a 1-hour meeting with the chief executive at the time, who's gone now. A good man, but I remember his opening remark in a 1-hour meeting took 37 minutes. And I think that kind of summarized the concept of the NHS on dialogue, or some people on dialogue. But I don't know where the CCG is going to do. I'm not sure even it was right to ask GPs to take that responsibility. I think there is a lot to be done to kind of figure out the conflict of interest on this, because GPs are also providers, they're now commissioners. It was interesting to see that Virgin, for instance, just ended all its relationships with all GPs who were co-partners in their Assura business. So I think the jury is out on that one. And we'll see. I hope that they're more innovative, but I don't think the problem is ever structures. I think politicians are very good at trying to solve the problem by changing the structures. I think in Britain, we've become extremely good, Gemma, at answering the what question of business and the how question of business. What products, services should I create? How do I make it more productive, more efficient, more profitable? But we often forget about the why question. Why do we do what we do? What is the purpose we want to serve at the end of it all? You know, and I think the CCGs need to start asking that question first, And the government, the country, should have asked that question first before they ask, how do we restructure this in order to create another structure to deliver another objective that I haven't defined yet?
Ali, can I ask